Hi there. Welcome to the Williamson Watchers Special Election Podcast. We are so pleased to bring you interviews with the current candidates in the Tennessee 7 Congressional Republican primary. Here were the rules. We asked the same set of questions to each candidate. We estimated each podcast would take about 15 minutes, but we allotted a half an hour block for each. We have held the release of the podcast until all the candidates wishing to participate were able to participate, therefore not giving an advantage to any one candidate. We invited all 11 candidates. We're happy to showcase here 7 candidates who are in the Tennessee Republican primary. The candidates joining us are Jody Barrett, Gino Bulso, Adolph Dagan, Mason Foley, Joe Lures, Stuart Parks, and Trace Whittam. Stuart Cooper was unable to record due to scheduling conflicts. We did not receive a response from candidates Jason Knight, Lee Reeves, and Matt Van Epps. We hope you are able to watch or listen to all the candidates. You will certainly get to know the candidates better, become better informed on some of the issues, and perhaps be surprised by a candidate or two. Remember, we are not journalists. We are the Republican Party of Williamson County. Our goal was to have all of our Republican candidates do well and give them an opportunity to speak to you directly on their platform and ideas. They did not disappoint. As a follow-up, we are holding a debate on September 15th, 2025 at the Church of the Nazarene in Franklin at 7 p.m. We hope that you can attend and see for yourself the quality of candidates Tennessee 7 can produce. This debate will be moderated by Fox News and 99.7 WWTN commentator Brian Wilson. You can send us questions for the candidates at tennessee7@williamsongop.org. Now on to the Williamson Watchers. Welcome to the Williamson Watcher podcast. I'm Peg Raciti with the Williamson County Republican Party. Alongside me today are my cohorts, ever watchful Leanne Cates and Elliot Franklin. Today, we welcome candidate Tennessee Rep. Gino Bulso, who represents District 61 in the Tennessee House. Now he's running for Congress in the Tennessee 7. Welcome, Gino Bulso.
Thank you, Peg. It's my pleasure to be here. Good to see you, Elliot and Leanne as well.
Yeah, we're all here. It's like almost like the Brady Bunch, just a few short.
Yeah.
So I have the loveliest, easiest question to ask you. I would like to start off with just asking you, can you please tell us about yourself?
Sure. Peg, I'm happy to. As you mentioned already, I am a state representative who serves in the Tennessee House of Representatives. I've had the privilege to represent District 61, Northern Williamson County, for the past 4 years. Kathy and I are in our 40th year of marriage now. We have 5 wonderful children who have thus far given us 8 grandchildren who are ages 7 and under. So we're having a lot of fun around our house on the weekends, as you might imagine. And I also practice law. I've been a trial lawyer now for nearly 40 years as well, going all the way back to 1986. And I've tried, more than 150 complicated commercial cases in Tennessee and state and federal court and across the country. And I've had the privilege to serve as the chairman of our Supreme Court's Advisory Commission on the Rules of Practice and Procedures for the last 3 years, rolling off just this past June of this year. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a trial lawyer. I'm a father, a husband, a state legislator, and just somebody who loves his country and loves giving back.
Awesome. Thanks. So what compelled you to run for TN7?
Principally because, I'm someone who believes that our federal government taxes too much and spends too much, which is actually, I think, at the root of most of the problems that we have domestically, because we are a country that always thrives when our families thrive. And one way to hurt families is to take more of their hard-earned money than you should. And our federal government's been doing that for a very long time. Somehow we have normalized this idea that a federal government can take 30 or 35 or 40% of our wages, and that we should put up with that. But as we've seen, that level of taxation is ridiculously high, and even at that level, we're still running a $37.2 trillion national debt that we have to hand on to our children, and we're racking up these deficits at the rate of $1.5 trillion a year. So much so that the interest that we'll pay this year on the debt is going to be $1 trillion, which is more than every other federal program except Social Security. And I want to lead the effort to actually get us back to the type of federal government, the limited government that our founders intended. Our federal government is only allowed under our Constitution to spend money on three things: defense, the debt, and the general welfare, which was a term with a defined meaning back in the late 18th century that James Madison used. It really just applied to spending to enforce the 17 enumerated powers that Congress was given in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. So I'm running, Elliot, to try to reduce taxes, reduce spending, and give the people the type of government that our founders intended.
Well, as you're aware, I'm sure we've recently learned how we define a woman. So now
Yes.
I'm going to ask you, how do you define a conservative?
You know, I think I define a conservative much the way that Barry Goldwater did. I mean, if you read Russell Kirk's A Conservative Mind, he actually talks about that a bit. A conservative is someone who respects the traditions of our ancestors. We don't tend to just think that we are the smartest generation in the history of the world and reject all of the foundations upon which our society and our civilization have been built. And you bring up one of the most ridiculous modern notions, Leanne, that somehow there's some confusion about how many sexes there are. Obviously, there are not. And I was very happy to draft the bill along with Senator Kerry Roberts that actually defined the term sex as used in our Tennessee code to mean male or female, boy or girl, man or woman. So a conservative is someone who respects the traditions of the past and moves forward, uh, obviously in a considered and thoughtful manner, but not somebody who's going to reject wholesale the foundations of our society.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'll take the next question. You're about to be in a Republican primary election. We currently here in Tennessee have open primaries. Do you think that Tennessee should have open primaries or closed primaries?
Well, it's an interesting question, Peg. We actually have a statute that requires that our primaries be closed. But unfortunately, it's not enforced. And so we do have, in many counties across the state, including Williamson, Democrats voting in our Republican primary elections, which destroys the whole concept of a primary. And as you may remember, I was the primary opponent to this bill, HB 855, that one of the candidates in this race actually sponsored, arguing on the floor of the House how unconstitutional it was because it violates the state party and our county parties' rights of freedom of association under the First Amendment, because you simply cannot, as a government, require a particular type of election and yet leave it so that others who are not members of that party can participate, which is the circumstances that we have now in Tennessee. So you can put me down as someone who is strongly against open primaries and who has fought as hard as anybody else in the state legislature to try to give us closed primaries.
Thanks. So, fixing to head to DC, have you had an opportunity to spend time in DC? And if so, how do you protect yourself from the swamp if you move up into that area?
Yes, I have visited DC, I mean, several times over the past few weeks, Elliot. I went up there and met with President Trump's political director at the White House. I met with Speaker Johnson's office. I met with Steve Scalise's office. I met with the House Freedom Caucus, who I align very well with in terms of political philosophy. I met with the folks up at Club for Growth, really good folks. And it is a bit of a swamp, you might say. And I think it's that way because some of the creatures tend to go there and never leave, which is really, I think, part of the problem that we have in our government, that, folks should be there only looking after the public interest, the public welfare. That's what the preamble to our Constitution says. We're going to promote the general welfare. But when folks start thinking about how to win the next election, all of a sudden, the general welfare of the people becomes a secondary consideration, and that's why it is a swamp. So, the way that I'm going to navigate it is the way that I always have, is just stay focused on doing what's best for the people, because that's what we're in this for. I have no ambition to go to D.C. and be a career politician. First of all, I'm too old for that. I'm 63 now. So I want to get up there, try to reform this government, help President Trump reform the government, reshape it, scale it down, reduce the size and scope of it. And I think I'll be able to, have some success if I can get the like-minded conservatives up there to join us. And then we collectively can get the people on board, because really nothing changes in this country without the people. That's something that Abraham Lincoln reminded us in his first debate with Stephen Douglas back in 1858 in Ottawa, Illinois, where he said, public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Against it, nothing can succeed. And President Reagan, in his farewell address, said, I did not do anything that you did not do for me, speaking to the American people. So to sort of make it a non-swamp, Elliot, we need to get people activated, we need to get people involved, and we need to get the public squarely behind President Trump in sort of scaling down this federal government that we have.
You actually sort of led into what my next question was going to be, so I'm going to put two of them together. So my next question was going to be, do you support term limits? But then also along those same lines, do you support members of Congress being banned from trading stocks while in office, or even for a period of time after they have completed their term?
Let me take the second question first, if I could, Leanne. And the answer is yes. And frankly, one of the bills that I would draft and file in my first year in Congress will be a bill that bans anyone in Congress from trading stocks of our private corporations, because it's just unseemly, and it actually causes the public to question the legitimacy of its own government. We have to avoid even the appearance of any type of financial impropriety. So I am against congressmen trading in stocks. I think I might name that bill the Nancy Pelosi Act, because I think every good bill needs a good name.
That's right.
And in term limits, we don't have term limits in the Constitution, but the tradition started with George Washington after his first two terms. And I think that is something that does now need to be applied to the Congress of the United States, because the structural problem we've got is that folks are more worried about raising the money to win re-election than staying focused on the public good. And I think we're at the point now where we've seen decade after decade this ridiculous debt just continuing to rise, that we need to change something structurally. And I think term limits would be one good way of doing that.
Good.
So, what steps would you take, if any, to help codify Trump's executive orders on election integrity?
Okay, that's a good question, Peg. I would frankly encourage not just the federal government, but the states to do that. He has come out with an executive order that recognizes that using hand-marked paper ballots is actually not just the most secure way of voting, but the least expensive. I remember President Trump quoting the figure, and I can't tell you whether it's accurate or not, that using paper ballots actually costs 8% of what the machines do. So I think we have, for a very long time in this country, never had trouble. 1960 might be a slight exception to that, but we've never had trouble justifying the legitimacy of our elections. And we see now that, with the advance of Dominion and ESS and these other manufacturers, and not to mention the advance of artificial intelligence and the problems that it might create, that the most secure way to go about our elections is doing what President Trump has said in his executive order. And I would be in favor of that on both the federal level and having our state governments adopt that as well.
I think you've already kind of alluded to this, but are you willing to join the Freedom Caucus?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's obviously, Elliot, is something that you have to be invited to join. But I've enjoyed my meeting up there with them quite a bit. We have the same political philosophy about limited government, about respect for the Constitution, about reducing the size of government, about staying focused on what's good for people, not so much what's best for the political institutions or special interests. So, yes, I would be delighted to join the Freedom Caucus.
Let's jump to, we've been federal. Now let's jump to international. Just pick your favorite subject that's on an international level, because you will be faced with opportunities to have to make decisions that are of international importance, that have an effect on our world, not just on our country. So is there anything that you have specifically that you would be interested in affecting or contributing to, be it something in the Middle East or the Ukraine peace talks or tariff subjects? Just what is there anything in particular that kind of, your ear tunes into that you would love to be a part of?
Well, certainly both the items that you just alluded to. I am a big supporter of the state of Israel. I went over there just 6 weeks after the horrific Hamas attacks of October 7, 2023. And I actually went down to the Gaza border with the IDF, and I met with folks who had been shot by Hamas on October the 7th. And I met with members of the Knesset, including Danny Danon, who's now the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. And I do think that I'd love to be part of a solution to what is really troubling the Middle East. And it really is that there is just too much hatred for the state of Israel. I mean, you hear folks talk about a two-state solution. Well, really, I mean, you've got Israel as the only Jewish state in the Middle East, surrounded by 20 Arab states. And the real problem is that the Palestinian children continue to be indoctrinated with hate for the Jews. And that is something that needs to change. It really gets down to education, and not raising generation after generation of Palestinians that just want to kill the Jewish people. So that's one thing that I'd love to be involved in trying to help with, Leanne.
Yeah.
Ukraine is also something that's very much top of mind because of the work that President Trump is doing, trying to bring peace there. I think Russia is clearly the aggressor in that war, and I think they respond when they see weakness, and that they actually respect strength. And Ukraine is not currently a member of NATO. We do have 3 former Soviet republics, which are Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. And the number of NATO states has grown to 32 over the years from its original 12. And it's not really, I think, at this point possible to give Article 5 protection to Ukraine. But I think that we can give the kind of security guarantees that President Trump has been discussing recently with Putin and with Zelensky. So if I were in Congress, I certainly would be doing all I can to help the president shut down that war and showing strength to Russia.
Thanks. And I'll go ahead and take the last question. Then, which of your experiences set you up to be the congressman from Tennessee 7, or for Tennessee 7? Which of your experiences?
Let me name 2.
Okay.
First, it's just my grasp and respect for our Constitution. We have an amazing blueprint as to how governments are supposed to work. And unfortunately, particularly with the Democrats, they just ignore it. I mean, it's like they're up there legislating without having any regard for the type of government we're supposed to have. And James Madison set it all out just so expertly, not just in the Constitution, but in the 29 Federalist Papers that he wrote, including Federalist 45, where he talked about how the powers of the federal government are supposed to be few and defined. Those of the states are, quote, numerous and indefinite. That's the opposite of what we have now. So one thing that sets me apart, Peg, is that I have a deep understanding as to how this government is supposed to work. And I want to get up there and implement that plan. And then secondly, I've got a legislative track record that is as conservative as anyone could possibly want in someone being elevated to Congress, because I have passed significant legislation in the pro-life area with the Baby Olivia Act and the bill that we're working on right now to prevent abortion pills from being sent into the state illegally. I've passed major Second Amendment legislation to allow private schools in particular that are pre-K through 12 to protect themselves with an on-site armed response in the event of an active shooter, which wasn't the case before we were able to pass a bill last year. I've also, of course, been the champion for protecting girls' athletics and girls' private spaces. We've done that many times, not just with the bill defining sex, but with the bill that requires that any school that participates in TSSAA at the middle school or high school level not allow biological boys to compete with girls or to enter their locker rooms. And then most recently, earlier this year, we passed a bill that precluded colleges and universities in Tennessee that have programs for minors overnight, make sure that they segregate their restroom and shower and locker room facilities by sex, because we had, in my case, a constituent who sent his young daughter, a junior in high school, to an overnight monthly summer program at one of our local universities, only to find out that they had transgender boys identifying girls as girls on the floor in the restrooms. We've stopped all that. So if you look at my legislative record, you're going to see something that is a valid, true, tried and true conservative record that is going to be something I'll be able to follow in Congress. So my respect for the Constitution, my conservative record, I think set me apart.
Excellent.
And I'd love to have all of your votes while we're talking about it.
Well, I'm not in D7, so I don't get to vote.
Okay.
So,
We'll count you out, Leanne.
But yeah, well, this has been great.
Yeah, and let me, I can mention one other thing to you. We just got this news today. We're having a debate first week of September that's sponsored by WTN and Americans for Prosperity, AFP. And we just learned today that they conducted a poll so they could qualify the candidates, because you have to be in the top 3 to be there. And they're going to release this poll on Monday. But even though I've only been in the race for 3 weeks, right now I'm tied for first with Lee Reeves. Jody Barrett is in third. We're tied with 14%. Apparently Jody Barrett's at 11%. Matt Van Epps is at 8%. So we are off and running. The message that we have about limited government and reining in taxes and spending and keeping boys out of girls' athletics and cracking down on illegal immigration is resonating all over the district. People are really hungry for that kind of a message. Everyone wants to get the cost of living down because things have just gotten so crazily expensive because we have the government spending like a drunken sailor. So I'm very optimistic, not just about the country, but about this race. We're right there at first already after 3 weeks, and we're just going to keep going.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And Peg will make us all look good in the post-production. So
she always does.
She does.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay. Bye-bye, y'all.
All righty. Bye.